I am continuing my reading. What I'm doing in this series is to read through the entire standard works of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. This consists of the Bible, the Book of Mormon, the Doctrine and Covenants, and the Pearl of Great Price. I am reading in a chronological order of events, not according to publication or volume, so I will be skipping around a bit as I move along. Okay, so now we have the last chapter of Nehemiah. This is chapter 13. We've built the walls, we've dedicated the walls. Remember, just like we do in the modern day, we build the temple, then we dedicate the temple. This is the city of Jerusalem has been rebuilt, repaired, the walls have now been dedicated, and the people have covenanted. They have signed their names to the covenant to keep the law of God. Now, we get chapter 13. Ammonites and Moabites denied a place in the congregation of God. Tobiah ejected from his dwelling place in the temple. Nehemiah corrects abuses and reinstitutes Sabbath observance. Some Jews rebuked for marrying strange wives and defiling the priesthood. On that day they read in the book of Moses in the audience of the people, and therein was found written that the Ammonite and the Moabite should not come into the congregation of God forever, because they met not the children of Israel with bread and with water, but hired Balaam against them, that he should curse them. Howbeit our God turned the curse into a blessing. Now it came to pass, when they had heard the law, that they separated from Israel all the mixed multitude. What is meant by mixed multitude is those of foreign birth. They're removing the Ammonites and the Moabites. Now, if they follow the law of Moses, then an Ammonite or Moabite who marries an Israelite, then after, I think it's 5, possibly 8 generations, I can't remember which one, their descendants are counted as Israelites and are allowed into the congregation. But that's what the mixed multitude is. They're separating out everybody who's not Israel. Verse 4. And before this, Eliashib the priest, having the oversight of the chamber of the house of our God, was allied unto Tobiah. And he had prepared for him a great chamber, where aforetime they laid the meat offerings, the frankincense, and the vessels, and the tithes of the corn, and the new wine, and the oil, which was commanded to be given to the Levites, and the singers, and the porters, and the offerings of the priests. But in all this time was not I at Jerusalem. For in the 32nd year of Artaxerxes, king of Babylon, came I unto the king. And after certain days obtained I leave of the king, and I came to Jerusalem, and understood of the evil that Eliashib did for Tobiah, in preparing him a chamber in the courts of the house of God. And it grieved me sore. Therefore I cast forth all the household stuff of Tobiah out of the chamber. Then I commanded, and they cleansed the chambers, and thither brought I again the vessels of the house of God, with the meat offering and the frankincense. So what we have here, see, this is Nehemiah's first journey, all the building of the wall, that took 52 days. And later on that year, they dedicated it. What he's saying here is that he came down on the 20th year, in the 20th year of Artaxerxes. He returned to the king on the 32nd year, or in the 32nd year. So he was in Jerusalem for 12 years. Then he goes back, and he is once again the cupbearer to the king. But after some time, we're not specified how long of a time, but after some time, he returns to Jerusalem. He is again, see, he's governor for 12 years. He goes back to Shushan and the king. And then after some time, he returns to Jerusalem and is once again governor. I'm thinking it's another, probably 12 years. We have like a 12-year, you have 12 years that you're governor, and then we bring in another governor. So something like that. It was a number of years later. In the interim, while he is gone, while he is back in Shushan, the priest here, Eliashib, he has the oversight of the house of God, so he oversees the temple. And he lets Tobiah come and set up house in the temple. He gives him the chamber that is set aside for storing the offerings. Now remember, Tobiah is an Ammonite. We go back. It was Sanballat and Tobiah who were the two biggest adversaries of Judah, trying to stop them from rebuilding the walls. But he had family connections to a number of the priests. And so once Nehemiah is gone, Eliashib, being a relative of Tobiah, trying to court his favor, lets him set up house in the temple. He's living in the temple. He's an Ammonite. He's not allowed in the temple. He's not allowed anywhere near the temple. They just cleansed the Ammonites and the Moabites, took them out of the congregation. They're not allowed there. Nehemiah returns from Jerusalem. He finds out what is going on, and he forcibly evicts Tobiah from the temple. He takes all of his stuff and chucks it out. And I don't think he's doing this all that pleasantly. Cast forth everything. He's just throwing it out in the street. He's taking all the stuff and throwing it out of the temple. He's not being polite about it. He's cleansing it. Verse 10. And I perceived that the portion of the Levites had not been given them, for the Levites and the singers that did the work were fled every one to his field. Then contended I with the rulers and said, Why is the house of God forsaken? And I gathered them together and set them in their place. Then brought all Judah the tithe of the corn, and the new wine, and the oil unto the treasuries. And I made treasurers over the treasuries, Shelemiah the priest, and Zadok the scribe, and of the Levites Tobiah. And next to them was Hanan the son of Zachar, the son of Mattaniah. For they were counted faithful, and their office was to distribute unto their brethren. Remember me, O my God, concerning this, and wipe not out my good deeds that I have done for the house of my God, and for the offices thereof. So not only was Tobiah being allowed to live in the temple, but they were not collecting the tithes that were supposed to be given to the support of the Levites to allow them to perform the work of the temple. And so all the Levites had to go back to their own houses in order to provide for their families. So the temple is being neglected while Nehemiah is not there. And so he's bringing all the rulers in and he's getting after them. He's chastising them. You're not doing what you've covenanted to do. And so they bring in the tithes and they bring the Levites back in. They set these 3 men over it all to distribute to the Levites so that the work of the temple can be done. Verse 15. In those days saw I in Judah some treading wine presses on the Sabbath, and bringing in sheaves and lading asses, as also wine grapes and figs and all manner of burdens which they brought into Jerusalem on the Sabbath day. And I testified against them in the day wherein they sold victuals. There dwelt men of Tyre also therein, which brought fish and all manner of ware, and sold on the Sabbath unto the children of Judah, and in Jerusalem. Then I contended with the nobles of Judah, and said unto them, What evil thing is this that ye do, and profane the Sabbath day? Did not your fathers thus, and did not our God bring all this evil upon us and upon this city? Yet ye bring more wrath upon Israel by profaning the Sabbath. And it came to pass that when the gates of Jerusalem began to be dark before the Sabbath, I commanded that the gates should be shut, and charged that they should not be opened till after the Sabbath. And some of my servants set I at the gates, that there should be no burden be brought in on the Sabbath day. So the merchants and sellers of all kind of ware lodged without Jerusalem once or twice. Then I testified against them, and said unto them, Why lodge ye about the wall? If ye do so again, I will lay hands on you. From that time forth came they no more on the Sabbath. And I commanded the Levites that they should cleanse themselves, and that they should come and keep the gates, to sanctify the Sabbath day. Remember me, O my God, concerning this also, and spare me according to the greatness of thy mercy. So not only are they profaning the temple, they're not doing the work of the temple, they're profaning the Sabbath. They're doing their work on the Sabbath. That's not supposed to be done. And they even have foreigners coming in to trade on the Sabbath. Now remember, when Ezra was sent back, one of the decrees of Artaxerxes at that time was to teach all people the law so that they would know what the law of Moses was and could respect it. But we have these people, the Jews aren't respecting it, so why would the men of Tyre respect it? So Nehemiah, he tells it, end this, stop this. This is why we were destroyed in the first place. This is why we are in captivity, why we are no longer an independent nation. Keep this up and it's going to happen again. So he puts a stop to it, but then he closes the gates of the city. But all the merchants, they still come, because they're used to coming, and they say, oh, well, we'll just camp here and wait for the Jews to come out to us. And Nehemiah says, no. According to the law of Moses, if you try to trade on the Sabbath, I have the right to confiscate your stuff. And Artaxerxes, under Ezra, has declared that the law of Moses would be enforced. So if you stay here, if you come here again on the Sabbath to trade, I'm going to take all your stuff, and you're not going to have anything. And they stopped coming. The threat was real. They knew that the king had given that decree under Ezra. Sometimes I wonder if we in the modern day really strive to keep the Sabbath like Nehemiah did. Verse 23. In those days also saw I Jews that had married wives of Ashdod, of Ammon, and of Moab. And their children spake half in the speech of Ashdod, and could not speak in the Jews' language, but according to the language of each people. And I contended with them, and cursed them, and smote certain of them, and plucked off their hair, and made them swear by God, saying, Ye shall not give your daughters unto their sons, nor take their daughters unto your sons, or for yourselves. Did not Solomon king of Israel sin by these things? Yet among many nations was there no king like him, who was beloved of his God. And God made him king over all Israel. Nevertheless, even him did outlandish women cause to sin. Shall we then hearken unto you to do all this great evil, to transgress against our God in marrying strange wives? And one of the sons of Joiada, the son of Eliashib, the high priest, was son-in-law to Sanballat the Horonite. Therefore I chased him from me. Remember them, O my God, because they have defiled the priesthood and the covenant of the priesthood and of the Levites. Thus cleansed I them from all strangers, and appointed the wards of the priests and the Levites, every one in his business, and for the wood offering at times appointed, and for the first fruits. Remember me, O my God, for good. They were marrying Ashdod, which is the Philistines, and then Ammon and Moab. This one guy, the son of Joiada, the son of Eliashib. So Eliashib is the guy that allowed Tobiah to live in the temple. His grandson married the daughter of Sanballat. Sanballat and Tobiah are the two biggest enemies of the Jews at this time. They were the ones heading the conspiracy to kill the Jews to prevent the building of Jerusalem. And now these people are marrying into their families. Nehemiah, when he finds that out, he chases the guy. He doesn't just tell him to get rid of his wife. He chases him out of the temple. He chases him out of Jerusalem. He says, get out of here, you evil man. We're just not doing that. Anybody who would marry the daughter of such an evil man as Sanballat, he has no business being in the temple. It's also interesting to see they married these foreign wives, and their children couldn't speak the language of the Jews. They only spoke in the foreign languages of their mothers. So it's not even that they were marrying these women and they were getting converted and they were raising their children in the gospel. They weren't. They were raising their children in pagan tradition. And what we have here, Nehemiah comes back the second time, and what does we find? The covenant that they made. They covenanted to follow the law of Moses. Specifically, keep the Sabbath day, maintain the temple, and not marry foreign wives. Nehemiah comes back, and what does he find? Desecrating the Sabbath day, neglecting the temple, and profaning the temple, and marrying foreign wives. Everything that they covenanted not to do is now happening. Now, it doesn't say that the people were doing this in general. This wasn't a common thing among people. Most of the Levites had gone to their own places outside of Jerusalem because they needed to support their families. This was the elite class. These were the high priests. These were the guys in charge of everything that were doing this. And Nehemiah got rid of them. He cast them all out, and he replaces them with people who are faithful. So Ezra and Nehemiah, they are in Jerusalem. It is thought between 465 and 430 BC. That is where the Old Testament ends. And we have about 400 years between the Old Testament and New Testament that there is no history recorded in the Bible. Now, we do know a lot from secular histories, but we will not be returning to the Bible again until just before the birth of Christ. So once we finish Malachi, we'll be reading exclusively in the Book of Mormon. So I will see you there.